My name is Nyla Herbert, and I'm the content marketing manager here at Chronus. And I'm so excited to host today's webinar. A few quick housekeeping tips before we get started. I would like to direct your guys' attention to the chat section. The chat section is perfect for those who are sharing thoughts, comments, connecting with other participants. Feel free to drop it in there. The message box is for those who want to connect privately for a more one-on-one conversation. And it's often used for follow-up, so feel free to message anyone directly with a one-on-one question. And then the Q&A section is for those who have questions. You can drop it in there as well. But if you don't know where to put your questions, just drop it in the chat box, and we'll be sure to move it over and ask and share those questions at the end for the presenters. And if at any point during the presentation you'd like to learn how Chronus can support your organization's success, feel free to click the Get Demo button in the top right corner. You can also visit Chronus.com as well to learn more about our platform and how we're addressing the workplace connection crisis. So I'll go ahead and introduce our speakers. So today we have David and Cathy. David Satterwhite is the CEO of Chronus. David is a culture-first leader who has spent the majority of his career building, developing, and leading teams and organizations, earning the loyalty of customers and helping bring great technology and solutions to market. At Chronus, he is on a mission to help customers exponentially increase their employee engagement, driving team commitment and retention, and overall company success. Cathy Nelson is the Senior Manager of Talent Management and Executive Development at T-Mobile. Her mission is to connect, develop, and empower T-Mobile leaders to achieve their best, driving success for the entire organization. Cathy combines strategic vision with an operational focus, bringing a unique blend of interpersonal and technical skills, demonstrating both creative and analytical strengths. So before I share the agenda with you all today, I would love to know what your favorite Thanksgiving dish is. I'll share mine, sweet potato pie. Absolutely love it. But I would love to hear from you guys. Do you like turkey? Do you not like turkey? Do you like steak? Let me know. So we just wrapped up introductions, but today you'll learn about the employee disengagement crisis, as well as T-Mobile's strategy to build attachment. And you'll also learn how T-Mobile is measuring impact for their mentoring programs. We'll also have a fireside chat between David and Cathy, and then we'll kick it over to an audience Q&A. So if you have any questions, again, please be sure to drop it in the chat. And before we get started, I have a quick poll for you guys. I'll go ahead and share the poll. You'll see a little poll section pop up next to the message box. Feel free to click on it and answer that poll. But I would love to know, have you personally been involved in a mentoring relationship? So yes, maybe as a mentor, maybe as a mentee, maybe as both. Maybe you never have and would like to, but please share, and we'll have it up for about 30 seconds to a minute before we kick it over to David. Awesome. We're getting some votes here. Really good to see that we have both mentors and mentees in the chat. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the poll in about 30 seconds. Awesome. Thank you guys for sharing. David, I want to go ahead and kick it to you.
Great. Thanks, Nyla. I appreciate it. And welcome, everybody. Great to have you joining us. I'm David Satterwhite, the CEO of Chronus. And obviously, T-Mobile is a well-known organization. So I'm sure everybody's very familiar with T-Mobile, and we'll be excited to talk about a lot of what Cathy and her team are doing with mentorship and such at T-Mobile. But I want to tell you a little bit about Chronus. We are a culture-first platform for developing people and really focusing on the disengagement crisis with our mentorship and our ERG software. So we provide software. We've been providing software for mentorship for many, many years. It's a very deep, scalable, secure platform for these types of relationships. We also deliver ERG solutions to drive connection. We do that across all kinds of organizations in all kinds of verticals and all kinds of geographies, and are super excited to be as well. So with that, I want to move in a little bit further to this disengagement crisis. So I am betting that most of you who would come to a webinar like this are probably familiar with this poll, with this statistic that keeps coming up. And I've been obsessed with this since long before joining Chronus. 76% of employees globally consistently self-designate as being disengaged. And when you think about the staggering impact of this, the lost productivity is just amazing. I read a stat recently that 30% of first-time employees that join an organization in the United States, 30% leave after the first year. I mean, just amazing the cost of this crisis, and just the sheer amount of neglect that goes on if we're not focused on this in one way or another. And so we're focused with our customers and helping to tackle this challenge. And when you look at what's under the covers of this challenge, it's typically not compensation. It's not, oh, we want to be paid more. Everybody wants to be paid more. But it's generally speaking, as long as it feels fair, it looks a little differently when you double click into the disengagement crisis. It's the first line manager who feels isolated, who's not connected to anyone in the organization, doesn't feel like they've got friends or connections in the org. A huge reason for people to leave, a huge reason for retention issues with employees. It's that senior leader who feels like her purpose is not aligned with the company's purpose, or her talents and skills are really not aligned with the role she's in, which prevents her from really thriving in the organization and leads to disconnectedness. It's the frontline employee who just wants to be developed, wants to understand, how do I move forward? How do I get developed in this organization such that I can be successful and move forward? And when we're not focused on these three types of challenges, it leads to retention issues. And when we think about the cost and the benefit, therefore, of tackling these issues, it's all about ROI. We talk a lot about how this is, the right thing to tackle as a challenge, as a problem, but it's also the profitable thing to tackle. I mean, these stats are amazing, right? More profitable, more productive, higher retention, better performance. Read the other day, 42% less absenteeism if people are engaged. So don't ever let a finance person tell you that this is not an ROI thing, that there's not profitability benefits, productivity benefits. That's exactly what this is and what this challenge is that we're working with our customers to tackle. So with that, Nyla, let me turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much, David. And thank you so much for sharing those stats. It really is staggering to see. So before we hop into the fireside chat, I have another poll for you guys that I would just to learn a little bit more about you guys and where you are in your mentoring journey. So if you can if you see the poll section on the side next to the message box, feel free to click on one of the options that resonate with you the most. So maybe you're planning to launch a program. Maybe you've, launched at least one program, have an existing program, or you don't have any mentoring programs, but want to learn more about how to get one. So I'll leave the poll up for about a minute or two, and we would love to hear from you guys. Oh, we have a good amount of people that already have existing mentoring programs, and a good amount of people that are planning to launch a program. So I'll go ahead and just leave it up for another 10 seconds. Thank you guys for sharing. Awesome. So I'll go ahead and close the poll now and kick it over to David.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Nyla. So let's get into this a bit. So Cathy, let's talk about how you tackle this. As I recall, it's back to 2020, an eventful year that we all experienced in all kinds of challenging ways. But that was a key point for T-Mobile when you were thinking about specific challenges and looking at how to solve them. If you want to dig in a little bit on what that looked like, that would be great.
Yeah, of course. We all remember COVID hitting us in March of 2020. In addition to that, T-Mobile was merging with Sprint. Our Sprint T-Mobile merger closed on April 1st, just a couple weeks after we were all, pushed to work at home. So 2 major events going on in the world and in our organization. And aside from that, our company was growing. And although we had 2 headquarters, we had a very, very dispersed workforce. The majority of our employees worked across the country in regional offices or retail stores, customer care centers. And so we were dealing with a lot of ways that people were not connected in the moment between, COVID keeping us apart and away from live locations to, a new organization merging, and then the dispersion of our staff. And that was really hard for us because at T-Mobile, our number one mission is to connect our customers with the world. And we also want to make sure that our employees are connected with our customers, with each other, and with their communities. And so quite a crisis all coming together at one time.
I can only imagine. I mean, just merging 2 huge organizations like this and then doing it during COVID. Amazing.
Yeah. And so it was a great opportunity for us to think about, how do we close the gap? How do we solve the issues that we were facing at the time, and keep our people connected despite all those challenges?
Got it. Okay. In terms of what actually led you to mentoring, not just a mentoring program, as I recall, but a suite of programs. So what was the format you were looking for? How were you approaching it in terms of building it out with the organization?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we started our program as one-to-one mentoring, which I think a lot of mentoring programs begin with, just connecting, people with each other and helping to create those relationships across the organization. And we used Chronus to do that. We implemented the Chronus platform and really democratized how people could connect with each other in the organization. It wasn't really just limited to who you knew, who was in your location, in your office, who you saw day to day, or who you worked with in terms of your role. But because we were leveraging Chronus, the platform really allowed us to connect people across the organization, across different locations, and enable them to really find connections that they wouldn't normally otherwise meet on a daily basis. And as we built that program and evolved it, we also saw the need to help support our business with connections that they wanted to create in their organizations. And we implemented in the last couple of years mentor circles. And this allowed us to be a little bit more strategic about helping our functional groups, helping our ERGs, helping our affinity groups bring people together in small circles so that they could focus on a common topic and share their knowledge, their expertise, and learn from each other in a new way.
Right. So group mentoring as well as traditional one-on-one mentoring.
Yes, we did both. We started with one-on-one and then quickly scaled to do the group mentoring circles as well.
Yeah, great. And we see that a lot. Okay, so I've got some questions about the kind of the inner workings and the details of the program. But before we get there, let's talk a little bit about something we both find extremely important and a big, huge focus for both of us. And that's the impact, the outcomes of these types of programs for employees in the organization. So what sort of impact have you seen specifically from the programs?
Great questions. We've seen a number of different outcomes, and anything we implement at T-Mobile takes time and money. And so we want to make sure that there's a positive impact to the organization and the things that we do. One of the immediate outcomes that we saw was really an increase in cross-functional connections across the business, which was one of our goals when we set out with the program. We wanted to make sure that people weren't just siloed in their day-to-day business, but that they were connecting with people across different functions. And in the first few years of the program, we had over 2,000 connections between mentors and mentees. More than half of those, a little over 1,100, were across different lines of business. And so really, excited that what we, set out intending to do with Chronus and our Mentor Match program was one of the first outcomes that we saw. We also have some great success stories in the business that I wanted to share with you. I always love to hear how, these programs impact not only the business outcomes, but also impact people's lives. So I brought some stories today to share with you. We have a couple of associates who started out in our consumer organization. Merle was a consumer rep, and she had made her way after a few years in our consumer group to a role in our HR organization as an analyst. And Sandra, who was in a consumer organization as well, neither Sandra nor Merle had known each other or worked together when they were in consumer, but Sandra had been thinking about how she could grow her career. She joined T-Mobile and had spent a couple of years in our consumer group, but really wanted to grow her skills and was thinking about the possibilities for what she could do in the organization beyond consumer. One of her coworkers in a retail store had shared with her Mentor Match and encouraged her to sign up on the platform and get connected with people across the organization. Well, Sandra connected with Merle, and they soon started sharing experiences. Merle shared about her experience in the HR organization and how she had really made her way from consumer into HR, started to help Sandra with resume building and interview practices. And within about a year, Sandra applied for and secured a job as an HR specialist, not on the same little team that Merle was on, but part of the larger My HR organization. And so what started out as a mentoring relationship, they're now colleagues within the HR organization, which is really cool to hear.
Yeah, it's amazing some of the relationships that get built.
Yep. And then a second story I wanted to share about our cross-functional connections is about Daniel. Daniel is a case specialist, And he was not looking to move cross-functionally, but what he was doing was looking to kind of explore skills. He had always thought about project management as a possible career opportunity, but really didn't have anyone around his area who he knew that had project management skills or experience. And so he went on Mentor Match with the goal of finding someone who could help him learn more about project management. And he was able, through the platform's search functionality, to find Rosalinda. Rosalinda had not only been a project manager for many years, but she had actually won one of our prestigious Peak Awards at Sprint. We have an annual incentive program, and our highest performers, about 200 employees a year, win our Peak program. And Rosalinda was a Peak winner, and that was featured on her profile in Mentor Match. And so Daniel connected with Rosalinda. Rosalinda has been able to help him through job shadowing, a lot of which they've done virtually. But after some time working together, they were approved to let Daniel travel to a site that Rosalinda was visiting as a project manager. She helped stand up retail locations. And so Daniel was able to visit and actually do a real live on-site job shadow, and continues to work toward his project management skills and expertise with Rosalinda as a champion and a mentor for him.
Nice. And when it comes to career growth and advancement, how's the program helped there?
That is also a great question as well. We do a lot of metrics tracking for our Mentor Match participants versus non-participants in the organization. And what we found is that those who participate in our mentoring programs are 26% more likely to have an increase in their job level after being in the program. One of those examples is Kyle. Oh, I think we've lost his slide. Kyle joined T-Mobile right around the time that COVID was starting as well. So imagine being a brand new employee to a company that was, one, going through a merger,
Right.
and two, in the middle of COVID, right? So he joined at an interesting time, and he found out about Mentor Match and thought it was a perfect opportunity to build connections in the organization at a time when most of us were working at home, and it was really hard for him to kind of get acclimated and make those connections in person. So he built a couple of connections within Mentor Match, including some directors in HR and in our network organization. He not only wanted to, build his network, but he also is very specific about choosing directors because he had the aspiration to become a people leader, and he knew that directors hire people managers. And so he leveraged his mentoring relationships with those two directors to learn from them about what they look for in candidates for managers, and build his skills and have the right conversations with them that set him up for success when he was ready to apply for a manager position. And he has since become a manager in our finance organization, thanks in part to those mentoring relationships that he had started.
Yeah, a lot of people think of mentoring being, kind of your boss or someone up the chain that you're in. And, these can be so effective, cross-functionally and such, connecting people back and forth, such a powerful part of mentorship. So how have the programs helped employee engagement and retention specifically?
That's also a good question. So, like I said, for our metrics, we track measurements for our mentoring participants versus non-participants. And we saw a 37% difference in retention for those who are part of Mentor Match than compared with those who are not part of Mentor Match. And, we've We've been using the platform for a few years, so we only have a couple of years of data to work with, but it's a huge difference in terms of retention. And then in addition, in terms of engagement, we do an employee survey on an annual and sometimes semi-annual basis at T-Mobile. And one of the things that we really like to track is whether people want to be working at T-Mobile in the future. And our scores are generally really high for employee engagement and satisfaction across T-Mobile. Our average employee satisfaction with engagement is 83%. For
That's great.
Those who are involved in mentoring relationships, it's 87%. And while that doesn't seem like a huge difference when the scores are already so elevated, that's a big change for those who are involved in mentoring. And one of the things that we have learned from our employees, especially those who have been here for a while, like this success story about Alma, is that those employees who are highly tenured, they, you sometimes don't think of them as getting a lot of impact out of programs like mentoring because they have so much experience and have been around for such a long time. But Alma loves to participate in our Mentor Match program. She's mentored probably 5 or 6 employees since we stood up the program in 2020. And one of the things that she told us is that she loves it not only because she can share her experience, but because she has gotten reverse mentoring as well. She has learned, she said, as much from the people that she mentors as she has given to them. She was working with a couple of mentees, and they were both pursuing their project management professional certification and making a lot of progress. And they both passed their certification test. And she was so inspired by them that she decided to also start pursuing it. And they helped her study and prepare for the test as well. So a lot of, two-way benefit that comes from mentoring programs. Whether you're very experienced or new in your career, I think a lot of people can get a lot out of the relationship.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think there's so much that I personally have gotten out of, as you and I have talked before, out of reverse mentoring, and so much that you learn from mentoring someone that is a very different stage, maybe just a different generation, different department, different geography, different ethnic background, whatever it is. There's so much that can be learned. So, and I was just also going to say, you're talking about, further along in your career, I still meet with my number one mentor every other week. It's something that never stops. It's such a key piece. So, okay. So as we move forward, what about belonging and inclusion at T-Mobile? What role has mentorship played there?
Yeah. Being, having a sense of belonging is one of our top values at T-Mobile. We have what we call a BU culture. We're very known for our diversity, equity, and inclusion. And you can see the sizable difference from our employee survey scores for those satisfied with their sense of belonging at T-Mobile. In general, it's 78%. For those who are involved in mentoring, it jumps all the way up to 85%. And like you said, David, I think that's due to a lot of, just creating connections across the company with people who you normally wouldn't get to associate with on a day-to-day basis, forming those relationships, building those connections, and feeling like you've got people at T-Mobile who care about you and are invested in you and your development.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know about you, but it energizes me every time just to get on and chat with somebody wherever they are. Okay, so I've got a few more questions around kind of a little bit of a back and forth here. So let's start with, we talked about this ability to look back and how nice it is to look back and say, okay, what have I learned? I always think, as you and I talked about it, I will often say, okay, 4 years from now, what am I going to wish that I had done now if I was looking back from that period of time? So now that you're here, looking back 4 years, what are 2 or 3 things that you wish you had known when you had started?
We've learned a lot. I think one of the biggest things we learned is, partly because we stood the program up at a time when we had brought 2 large companies together. The organization was changing a lot, and people were super distracted with not only the merger but COVID. I think we expected our Mentor Match program to kind of fuel itself. But we found out that we really needed champions across the organization to help us communicate the program, make sure that people knew it was available, and that employees really understood that not only was it okay that they spent their time in mentoring and developing, but that we wanted them to. So I think the first piece of advice I would give to other organizations looking to stand up or expand their mentoring program is to really find those champions across the company, people who are in leadership roles, not necessarily manager roles, but people who are change agents in the organization who can really help communicate and show the value that the program brings and help get people really excited about it. The other thing that we learned is that, we try to tie mentoring to our normal sort of talent management rhythm of the business, right? It's not a separate thing. It really helps with driving performance and career conversations and helping people build skills. And so we try to make that connection for our employees and leaders as they do things like setting performance goals or creating development plans or having their performance check-ins throughout the year, to tie those things together and help leaders share Mentor Match as an option for employees to help build their skills and get even better at the work that they do.
So true. You and I have talked about how pretty rare to be in a company or an organization where there isn't somebody in a senior level who cares about mentorship and these kinds of programs. So getting someone like, obviously that person, whether it's on the executive team or senior leadership team or whatever, they can't mentor everybody, but they sure can help be a mouthpiece, a champion for the program and what's going on. It's so important to help make sure you're getting those champions, both folks that are in the program, but also leaders that can help highlight the program. I thought before I jump to my next question, I thought hey, Cathy, I'll grab a question out of the chat real quick. Deborah asks, how did the Chronus system support or enhance your program and mentor-mentee experience? We touched on a little bit before, but thought I'd just bring that out now, if that's okay.
Yeah. So I have done mentoring programs in the past before merger, before working with Chronus, and it's a very manual process to help match people together or to help create, group mentor circles that will be effective and are diverse. And we spent lots and lots of hours, trying to match people up, and those matches don't always work out because, there's a human element to it. Chronus for us was an unlock because it really democratized the process. Employees could get on the system. The profile that they fill out helps identify relevant matches for them based on what experience they have, what they want to achieve, the background of the person they were looking for. We decided at T-Mobile to let employees fill out things like their gender or their race, because sometimes mentees want to find people who look like them as mentors, or sometimes they want to find people who are different, depending on their goals. And so the system really helped match people in the way that they wanted to be matched, and to help them control the process, right? It empowered them to decide how long they wanted to keep the mentoring relationship going, how many mentors they wanted to have, and really enabled my team to focus on the tools and the resources and really helping to communicate versus all the time we had spent in the past on, that process of trying to create good matches.
Good. I appreciate that. I thought it might be helpful to dig a little bit more into mentor match, mentor circles, a little bit more about the setup, what was most helpful about those programs.
So the platform is pretty amazing. And we have relied pretty heavily on our Chronus partners to help us optimize how we use it. Not only can you match people in the platform, but it can hold a whole curriculum. It's connected to your Outlook calendar, any other calendar system that you use, so that employees can leverage it to set up meetings and get reminders. We use it to send out email notifications. You can schedule those. It's really taken a lot of the sort of that tactical operational management off our plate, so my team could be a lot more strategic and focus on what we would consider the more value add in creating those tools and resources and really helping manage the communications versus all of the operational things that the system does for us.
Awesome. Let's hit Brendan's question over here. This is kind of one of those blank slate questions, right? Okay, we've got no mentoring program in place, no known interest among top leadership. Now, what are some suggestions for pilot approaches to kind of plant the seed for larger programs? Do you have any thoughts about that for Brendan?
That's a great question. You might consider using the approach we took with mentor circles when we started to stand that up. We found just one or two small groups that were interested, right? They had a desire, they had a lot of energy around it. And we started small and made it, a really effective program for them. And then, because that worked so well, we were able to have some of those outcome metrics from the program and use that to help showcase to other functions and other groups the opportunity that was available to them that they weren't yet taking advantage of. I think also building the stories, like some of the ones I shared today, is a great way, to showcase the possibilities. And we leverage at T-Mobile, we've got a great corporate communications team. We leverage them to help us get those stories out to our employees because it's those outcomes, when you see your colleagues around you getting the development, the experience, the success from a program like we've seen, that's what really helps motivate people to get involved themselves.
Yeah, we see it at Chronus. We see just as many companies and organizations going small to start as we do going big to start. You get those organizations like, yeah, we understand this is super important. We're going strategic. We really want you to partner with us on going across and building these programs out. But we absolutely see just as many organizations that want to start small, someplace, and prove some things out, and then grow from there. So that's a good question. Another one was when building your matching criteria, and this comes up a lot in the programs. What were the key decisions you made to ensure that there were good matches between participants?
Yeah, that's a great question too. I think it really depends on what's important to your company. We were really thoughtful about not asking too many questions that it was overwhelming, but asking the right questions for what we wanted to achieve in our program. So one of the outcomes we wanted that I shared earlier was some cross-functional connection in the business. And so one of the things that we asked about was what function they were in, right? We also are a very values-driven organization. And so values was one of our options. You could choose, what value you most wanted to build or, were most interested in developing and connect that way. And then, like I said, we want people to feel like they can find the people that they're comfortable with and feel safe in that mentoring relationship. And so for us, gender and ethnicity were things that we also wanted to include so that people could, just find those diverse people that would help with that mentoring relationship. We were very thoughtful too about level. We decided to set our platform up, the mentor match platform, the one-to-one mentoring, where the mentors who were suggested to you were no more than 2 levels above you, because we felt like if people connected with other associates who were, several levels above them, there just wasn't as much relevant experience and skills that would be shared. We wanted them to be, get more of that real-time development from people closer to their own level.
Yeah, no, fair. How about training? How important was the training aspect for the mentorship program? A lot of people think this is something that just comes off the top of your head. What was the training aspect that you took on for this?
Yeah, we thought long and hard about that too. Chronus is a really intuitive platform, but we have varying levels of comfort with technology among our employees and leaders. And so we took the time to work with the Chronus team to create some training just on the platform itself, so people felt comfortable about using the platform and weren't intimidated by the technology, because we had not in the past had technology as part of mentoring. People just knew it was a relationship. Now we're inserting this technology to help them. So we made sure that we had a little bit of support for the technology, and then we really wanted to help people feel comfortable about their role in the relationship. And so we put together training for mentors on what a mentor is and best practices, and help them feel comfortable with what they brought to the table and what was expected of them. We also had some short training for mentees, because we really wanted the mentee to own the relationship and drive it and feel empowered to, have their goals really clear, what they wanted to get out of the relationship, how often they wanted to meet based on what was realistic for their schedule. And so we put some training together for them to make them not only feel comfortable, but give them some kind of guardrails to help them make the relationship successful.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay. The other thing I want to touch on, and I'll go back to a slide here for this, is 75,000 employees. I mean, it's staggering, I think, for a lot of people to think about the number of employees T-Mobile has. So scalability comes up. What was, how did you build mentoring programs that were scalable given the size of the organization we're talking about?
Yeah, I think the platform really helped us with that one-to-one mentoring. Like I said, in the past, we'd have to facilitate those relationships, and this really put the power in employees' hands to own that. And we could really scale it across the organization. Aside from developing those resources and doing communications, we don't need to be in the middle of it. Employees can feel empowered to reach out to the mentors on the platform and form those relationships and really be in the driver's seat. We also saw the power in circles, and that helps us scale for the business. It's, for those of you who have mentoring in place at your current organization or who have tried mentoring programs in the past, one of the challenges is finding enough mentors for the volume of people who want to receive mentoring. And so the circle option helps us really scale the mentors that we do have to make the most impact on people in the organization. We try to do circles about typically about 6 to 8 mentees per mentor in a circle. And in some cases, we don't have a designated mentor. We do peer mentoring, depending on the need in the business. And, we help people understand that, they as employees can be mentors as well. They have a lot of skills and knowledge that they can share with each other. And so the circle concept has really helped us meet more need across the organization.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing for the connecting piece that's so important. And we have customers that that use that exclusively, mentoring, connecting people across the organization. What about some tactical examples of how you got people engaged? We get this question a lot. What kinds of ways did you get people engaged? And I know you brought up, there were some here that make sense to talk to.
Yeah, so I have an amazing program manager over our mentoring programs at T-Mobile. Henry, I think, is on the call today, but he's put in place some really engaging tactics in our organization that have made a huge difference. One is a mentoring newsletter that we send out from the platform to everyone who has a profile, and we just highlight specific things that we think would be helpful for our mentees and mentors to know about it, whether it's National Mentorship Month or new things that are available to them, whether it's training or we recently integrated the platform with Microsoft Teams, and that's been a huge lift for us. So we want to keep Mentor Match top of mind with people and give them tips and tricks. Henry's also facilitated a number of panel discussions across the organization to get the word out about mentoring and leverage leaders. Like you say, leaders, those champions in the organization can be so powerful. And so our mentor panels featuring leaders have been really successful in bringing more people to the platform to get engaged. And then finally, Henry just stood up a Mentoring Champion Award. We really want to recognize those who have been great mentors in our organization. And so I think it was 2 weeks ago, we launched our first Mentoring Champion Award campaign. We are going to be going through the nominations in December, and then we will announce our first Mentoring Champion Award winners in January, which is our National Mentorship Month.
Yeah, that's great. Good. All kinds of great information here. Nyla, I think you've got some more questions you were going to ask.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for that wonderful fireside chat. We're going to hop into some questions from the audience, and I'll kick a few off. But if you guys have more questions, just drop it in the chat and we'll be sure to get them answered. So, Cathy, one question that I have for you is about maintaining leadership buy-in. Can you talk us through how you all have gained and maintained leadership buy-in for your mentorship programs?
Yeah, that's a great question. Our team, mentoring is one program that we have in our team, and we often have to get buy-in for all of our programs. So, we track a lot of metrics like we shared earlier in the presentation. And we go and bring those success stories to our HR leadership team and our senior leadership team on a regular basis. I'm sure a lot of people on the call go through annual procurement processes or need to go through go-to-market processes to get buy-in. But between the, showing the impact of the metrics, sharing the stories, and just creating those connections between development and engagement and retention in the organization has been really key for us to show the positive impact that the small investment that we make has on our company and our employees.
Thank you for sharing that, Cathy. I believe we just got another question from Deborah. Do you include diversity such as race, age, gender of the member, mentor, and mentee in the match? And I believe you touched on this earlier, but would love to hear some more thoughts.
Yeah, we do. We include it as an option for people to fill out in their profile. It's not required, but we do let people opt in and offer that if they'd like to. We found that often people want to find other people who, look like them or have similar experiences and know what they're going through. So we do ask that as one of the options for their profile matches.
Thank you for sharing that. Go ahead, David.
That we talked about earlier. Too, the other way around as well. sometimes from a mentor perspective, some of the benefits of reverse mentoring is calling out specifically people who are quite different from you in different ways that can be really meaningful. So encouraging people to fill those things in so that there's those learning opportunities is important.
Yeah. Thank you for adding that, David. We just got another question from Brendan, and he said, we all have multiple engagement initiatives active at once. What would you consider the strongest companion initiatives for mentor programs?
Oh, that's a great question. So we try to help people understand the difference between coaching, mentoring, sponsorship, and we have all of those at T-Mobile. And so we really help employees think of what of those different opportunities, which would be most beneficial for them, depending on where they're at with their career or what they need in the moment. And so we offer, those different options, coaching, mentoring, and then for some employees, sponsorship. I would say the other thing that we really try to tie closely to mentoring is career planning. We want employees to have really just a really strong idea of what they want to get out of mentoring before they get there. So to think through their career plan, to think through their skills, strengths, and opportunities using, for example, a development assessment, having a good conversation with their manager can all, set the stage for making mentoring even more successful.
Awesome. A couple of additional questions for you, Cathy, before we wrap up. How do you overcome the constant pressure to consolidate, save money, and minimize the program if you've came across this kind of pressure?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we all want to minimize cost for our business or maximize outcomes. I like to try to focus more on the maximizing outcomes. We've also had initiatives at T-Mobile where we're trying to minimize our tech stack and bringing two companies together. We had a ton of different technology partners and platforms, and we want to really try to simplify for our employees. But what we found is that going to one vendor or reducing the number doesn't always make the experience better. And so we've tried to focus on the employee experience and choosing the thing that makes the most sense for what we're trying to achieve. And that's not always consolidation, but sometimes integrations help. I mentioned that we've used a Teams integration with Chronus, and that brings in mentoring to where people are already at, so that the desire to minimize the tech stack is a little bit less because they're not having to go to a different place. Mentor Match is coming to them. So really focusing on that experience, I think, has helped us, make what I think are good choices, not necessarily the lowest or less, cost choices.
For the ROI involved. But what I just want to also just put out there that one of the things that our teams help customers with is business cases. It's everybody, especially this day and age, everybody's got to do a business case on everything, right, Cathy? Like there's always this process of justification and showing ROI, and we've got a whole program to help with that when customers need it.
Thank you so much for adding that, David. I have one final question for you, Cathy, and this is more of the touch into the security part of the system. But how important is it? How important is security for your programs at T-Mobile, and how do you make sure your partners are offering the highest level of it for your employees and their data?
Yeah, cybersecurity is such a huge focus right now, I think, for a lot of companies, but especially for a company like ours that has millions and millions of customers, a lot of customer information. And so we go through rigorous processes with all of our vendors. Cronus has passed those processes with flying colors. You all have a lot of security certifications. And, we have never worried about our employee information with Chronus. I know that T-Mobile would not let us partner with anyone who would put our employee or customer information at risk. So
I think it's amazing. Some people just don't realize what they're putting at risk. This is personnel information. This is what, it's incredible how important that is.
Yeah. Cathy and David, thank you both so much. I learned a lot, and I'm sure the audience will be leaving with tips and insights and best practices. So thank you all for sharing. Just want to share a little bit more, and I'll share the slide as well. But first of all, again, thank you for everyone who came and who spent your time here with us. We really appreciate it. And thank you, Cathy and David, for being such great partners in this session, and Cathy for working with Chronus. But before you leave, I want you to take some time and think about an impactful mentoring moment in your life. How can you bring that to your workplace and bridge the gap of the connection crisis? So just take a moment to think about that and really hone in on how you can bring mentorship into your workplace to combat some of these, to combat the connection crisis in the workplace today. But also, if you're interested in learning more about mentoring software and how Chronus can automate and scale the mentoring programs in your organizations, please click that QR code in the top middle section. You will see it there. And if you also want to reach out to David and Cathy on LinkedIn, feel free to reach out to them and drop them a line if you have any additional questions. But other than that, thank you all so much for joining, and you will get the recording after this session. So thank you again. See you guys.
Thanks, everybody.